Manager for the NEM reform program. Welcome to our general stakeholder and NEM reform or NEM roadmap briefing. We have a number of people that are just joining the call now, so we will wait for a minute or two and then we'll commence our briefing. So thank you to those that have joined, and we look forward to what we hope will be an informative session for the group. Okay. Welcome to our NEM Reform Roadmap Briefing. My name's Greg Minney. I'm the Industry and Business Enablement Manager for the NEM Reform Program. Welcome to our General Stakeholder and NEM Reform Roadmap Implementation Roadmap Briefing. I know there's a number of people still joining the call, but we have a full agenda. So let's kick off and let's start by saying welcome. And we would like, and I personally would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, seas and waters across Australia. We honour the wisdom of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders, past and present, and embrace future generations. We acknowledge that wherever we work, we do so on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander lands. We pay respect to the world's oldest continuing culture and First Nations people, deepen continuing connection to country, and hope that our work can benefit both people and country. Welcome, everybody. First of all, a disclaimer. Just to point out that we are providing information here, but it includes material outlining AEMO's interpretation of the indicative impacts of several national electricity market reforms to energy market systems and processes for participants, dated as of today, the 5th of June 2025. Interpretations expressed in this particular are not binding on AEMO. The interpretation of the impact of NEM reforms may change at any time, especially as we go through the implementation process. Anyone participating or intending to participate in the NEM should obtain their own detailed advice about the application of national electricity rules, applicable laws, procedures and policies, and to the extent permitted by law, AEMO and its employees and consultants are not liable for any statements or omissions. We do provide this information as a general service, a briefing for you, but you can see the disclaimer there. If we could go on to the next page, some general housekeeping. We do have a large number of people on this call. What we would ask is that microphones will remain muted through the forum. It is a briefing session. We will be providing information as we go through. However, we do, in order to facilitate Q&A, there is a Q&A function that you should be able to see as highlighted there on your Microsoft Teams screen. We ask that you use that to submit any questions. We have several subject matter experts who will respond in written form to those Q&As. We do have a number of questions that have been submitted to participants by participants at the start of the call and registration. We'll summarise some of those as we go through. And just a general comment, by participating in this meeting, our expectations are that you will engage constructively, show respect during the call, and when utilising the Q&A function, and please familiarise yourselves with the AEMO's competition law meeting protocol, as was detailed in Appendix A and available on the AEMO's website, given that this is a public forum and a general discussion. Thanks, Anitra. A quick summary of the agenda. We are going through the welcome. David will provide some general context and program overview, and then we will move through a presentation of each of our in-flight and a summary of our anticipated initiatives. So this will be a short high-level briefing intending to highlight, I guess, the policy positions, key dates, anticipated participant impacts, and a general discussion of the content of those reforms. The objective here is to provide you with information and resources so that you can assess the upcoming impacts of a particular reform and make your decisions about how you become further involved in the program. The timeframes, what we are calling an in-flight initiative, are those that have committed delivery dates, either by a rule completion project, a rules initiative, where we have a final determination, or for some of our foundational and strategic initiatives, our planned implementation timeframes. You will find as we go through that the timeframes vary from, for example, frequency performance payments is a rule that will commence this weekend on the 8th of June, through to initiatives that are scheduled through to May 2027, and that's an example of how our program is developing. So we aim to provide an insight over all of those initiatives. On the next page of the agenda, following a summary there, Lance will provide an update, version 6 of the NEM reform implementation roadmap. David will present an overview of the participant impact assessment tool, which is a tool we're making available to help people understand the impacts of these reforms that we've just been discussed on your individual business, as well as providing summary impacts by market segment. We then have a Q&A session, and to sum up, I will come back and provide a how to be involved based on the information that you've been presented in this forum. So with that, if we could just go on to the next slide. Objectives of the session. As we said, our focus within this program is on the implementation of those initiatives where they've reached a final rule or policy determination, includes some foundational and strategic initiatives, but it's really to provide an overview of the program, the initiatives within the program, anticipated initiatives. The briefing isn't to provide a discussion or on the policy intent. They've been set in the rule determinations. We're providing at varying levels of detail. So working through the committed timeframes, first the in-flight initiatives, a walkthrough of the incremental and material changes in the implementation roadmap, which provides a much broader view of those initiatives that are within the scope of the NEM reform program, and we aim to provide you with information to understand how these reforms may impact you, and an approach to becoming more involved in particular as you work through the implementation of particular reforms. So with that, I'd like to invite David, if you would, to provide us a context and program overview. David, over to you.
Great, thanks Greg, and good morning everyone. Yes, my name is David Reynolds. I'm the manager for industry enablement. So I'll just give you a quick overview of the background and context of the NEM reform program. I'll aim to cover I guess, an overview of the program, the initiatives that the program comprise of, and some of the key highlights and achievements that we've achieved over the past year or 2 years. Is it now? Maybe longer. Is it almost 3 years? So what is the NEM reform program? So it's an important program that has been established to really facilitate Australia's transition to a future where there are more renewables on the grid. So kind of navigating the energy transition and deploying and implementing the relevant reforms that help get us there. And as we shift to that future of increasing volumes of renewables, there are a number of challenges that exist with that. And the key there is modernization really is necessary. This program represents one of the most substantial pieces of modernization or key pieces of work since the inception of the NEM. So it kind of places the scope of the challenge and the scope of the program underway. And really the intention here is to aim for delivering I guess a set of reforms and changes and initiatives that enable more renewables to reach consumers, that can improve the safety and security of the power system, and certainly encourage investment in renewable infrastructure. So in aiming to achieve those outcomes, really what has been key and integral to this program's success to date has been the collaboration with industry, between AEMO and industry and participants on the call, and some of you certainly might be new to this. It does represent a very broad, and we'll speak to this in a bit more detail, engagement effort, collaboration effort, and I would certainly like to take a moment and on behalf of the team to thank everyone for their efforts in being involved today. It has an extensive engagement format, which certainly does take time. So certainly thank everyone on the call for their time today and their time in the past and going forward in helping promote this program and deploy these initiatives. Thanks, Sinitra. We might jump on to the next slide. So this is quite a busy one, and I guess it provides an overview of the scope of the program. So each of these individual items represent an initiative underway, which may have come from a rule change. It may have been a strategic opportunity by AEMO to uplift some of our systems and capabilities. But I guess on aggregate, what we've got it here is represented by several pathways, which are highlighted in the primary colors there. Those pathways have a series of initiatives that are relevant to either wholesale electricity market reform or retail market improvements, etc. As you step across the board, and those initiatives are aiming to deliver updates and changes and upgrades to the power system and the market system. And so some of these pathways have stemmed from ESB post 2025 market design work, which some of you might be familiar with, and some of them have been generated by AEMO around the foundational and strategic kind of components that are somewhat opportunistic and strategic. Each of these initiatives really play a key role in upgrading or modernizing some component of the electricity network to ensure that it can facilitate that change in new technologies or respond to new consumer needs and challenges on the power system, whether it's requirements or market system upgrades. And so I guess it's this combination of initiatives that we have underway that represent the full scale and breadth of the program, and underneath each initiative is an extraordinary amount of work and engagement and effort underway to kind of deliver this program. Luckily, you don't have to listen to me go through each of these in detail. We have those much better placed and informed than I to take you through some of the key initiatives that we have in flight at the moment. A number of initiatives have been delivered already, and I won't go through them either today, but they're represented by the green ticks on the slide here. So certainly feel free to use this slide as a reference for some of the material that's some of the initiatives that are underway and the work that's underway and what has been achieved as of May 2025, noting to Greg's point that we have FPP going live in a couple of days. So thanks, Anitra. Happy to move on to the next one. So in terms of the program overview to date, what we have achieved is the deployment of 14 initiatives completed to date, which is quite a number, and all delivered kind of on time, in line with their statutory obligations and within budget, which has been a good outcome. We currently have 11 initiatives in flight. So those are initiatives that have gone past the final determination stage. So we have a rule change, or they have some other impetus for deployment. So it might be government or AEMO has assessed a business case and decided to proceed with that particular initiative. We have 3 initiatives anticipated, which we'll also speak about today. So those are typically initiatives that are reflective of draft determination stage or equivalent. So that represents 28 projects that we've worked on in some capacity, either through the implementation and completion, through currently in flight, or certainly we do some pre-work in the anticipated space as well. So quite a volume of work underway with 19 external initiative releases delivered. Now, releases are a little bit different to initiatives in that one initiative, IESS might be an example, may have 3 separate releases as part of its deployment. So 19 initiative releases overall deployed. 40 plus initiatives currently making up the program. So as rule changes relevant to reform are going through the cycle at the AMC and passed over to AEMO, they enter the program and we go through the same format of deployment. So thank you, Anitra. Collaboration. So this really has been quite a monstrous effort. We've, heading towards 400, maybe plus even NEM reform industry sessions. So those are sessions that we run as part of the program, sessions like this, multiple stakeholders on the calls discussing some of the detailed components related to the delivery of these initiatives. We've had about almost 5,000 stakeholders attend those sessions over the past 2 or 3 years, which has been a huge effort and a strong interest in staying informed through our newsletter as well. So lots of subscribers to that information, and certainly if you haven't had that opportunity yet, please do take that quarterly update that we have on the program. Thank you, Anitra. So in terms of how to get involved, just a really quick snapshot here. You can obviously, as in a more passive capacity, join the quarterly newsletter that I mentioned earlier. We also provide some announcements through that format as well. And feel free to email the team at nemreform@aemo.com to get engaged through those channels. If you are looking for a more active involvement or participation in the program, you can think about, I guess, the delivery and tactical component of involvement, or the more strategic elements of involvement. And we've got a variety of different tools and sessions available for people to participate in and engage with. So very quickly, we have established an executive forum which aims to look at that kind of big picture, strategic, longer term delivery focus. The NEM Reform Delivery Committee is still in that strategic space, maybe a little bit more focused on the implementation aspects of the program. We have the Program Consultative Forum, which is very much the in-flight initiatives that we focus on there. Implementation, as it says on the tin, is all about implementation of reforms. The roadmap is a tool that we develop and update every 6 months or so, or if we have other substantial updates, we may do that earlier. That provides some clarity around the scope of initiatives and the range of initiatives that we have, the timelines associated with those initiatives at a very high level. We also run a high-level implementation assessment or informed go-live process, which some on the call will be familiar with. That's really around identifying, around the draft determination stage, what are the likely impacts of the various initiatives to industry and to AEMO. So something that we work through, and you can provide and engage with, provide some feedback and consultation on that as we work through that element. That helps inform things like commencement dates, or allows participants to get some sense of what the likely scale and impact of an initiative might be that's being proposed by, or rule change that's being proposed by the AEMC. And finally, as Greg mentioned earlier, we have a participant impact assessment tool, which we've recently published on the website, that is available. I believe we have links later in the pack to guide you to that resource that will enable you to I guess assess, and we'll talk about it in a little bit more detail today, but just assess the impact of some of these reforms on your business. So I'm happy to pause there, Greg. I believe that's the last slide from my side.
Thanks, Dave. Before we let you go away, so I guess I said two things. One, at the end of this briefing, we'll come back and look at how to get involved. So please, as we're going through, keep in mind those initiatives that will impact your business and that you should be involved in. What we're going to move on to now is a summary of our in-flight and anticipated initiatives, as Dave will introduce those, and then we'll ask a number of our business experts to provide a quick update on each of those initiatives as we go through. So Dave, back to you for a quick summary of those in-flight initiatives, and then we'll move through one by one based on the agenda.
Thanks, Greg. Yes, I'll just quickly introduce this. So in-flight initiatives, as mentioned previously, these really are initiatives that have gone beyond the final determination stage. So we have a final rule, and we're moving forward with the implementation of these particular initiatives. We can step on to the next slide, Anitra. So really, you can use this as a summary reference. We have a number of initiatives that are have a number of go live dates starting from the 8th of June, so in 3 days' time, and moving forward throughout the rest of the year and into 2026 as well. So I guess, I won't spend much time going through this, Greg. I think the real takeaways here is that this is a useful summary reference on this slide and the next. It's a really quick snapshot of the go live dates and some of the key dates associated with those initiatives. And we do have a set of impacted stakeholders that we've identified relevant to the different initiatives. So I guess use it as a useful guide and reference point for getting a snapshot of whether or not you're an impacted stakeholder, what that go live date looks like. But happy to throw to the experts on the call, Greg, to take us through the detail.
That is fine. Thanks. And Ulrika, if you're on the call, if you would come and talk to us about frequency performance payments, which is an initiative that will be commencing its final part of its rule in a few days' time. Ulrika, over to you.
Thanks so much, Greg, and hi everyone. Good afternoon. Hope everyone's well. So for those who haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Ulrika Lindholm, and I'm a Reform Business Lead at AEMO and the NEM Reform Program. So the background, if we can go to the next slide, thanks. So the background for the so-called frequency performance payments reform is the primary frequency response incentive arrangements rule, tongue wriggler that one, which was made by the AMC or the Australian Energy Market Commission, I should say, in late 2022. So this particular reform addresses a changing generation mix in the energy transition, which we know makes it increasingly challenging to balance supply and demand in the NEM. So that makes it increasingly important to provide frequency response to keep the electricity system stable and the lights on. So the NEM has a number of arrangements to help balance the energy supply and demand. FBP does this specifically by incentivizing small, helpful adjustments to stabilize frequency from generators, large loads, and batteries during normal operations. And this can be, in simple terms, can be broken down into two top-level deliverables, which addresses two types of responses that plants can provide. So it's either primary frequency response, where under this new reform, a new double-sided frequency performance payments process is introduced. And under this arrangement, in each 5-minute trading interval, each cost recovery market participant receive either a credit or a debit based on their on the helpfulness of their frequency performance, and forming ultimately a zero-sum system. The other aspect is around secondary frequency control, where a new process for allocation of regulation, frequency control, and ancillary services cost is introduced to replace the current so-called cost-based arrangements, which in the end results in a more direct link between performance and cost. Next slide, thanks. Right, so in terms of impacts of this reform on participants, so I mentioned that it is on generators, large loads, and batteries, who are cost recovery market participants in the NEM. And the impacts are mainly on the bidding and dispatch, as well as billing and settlement side. In terms of next steps, we're very close to final go live and will commencement for this initiative. In fact, it's this coming Sunday, 8th of June, with the final release activities currently ongoing. And this final go live follows a period of what we called non-financial operation, which occurred from December 2024 until now, which has allowed operators of plants to observe the new system and calculations in the system before they come into effect in terms of payments. And this second and final release that we are currently working through introduces changes to and start of financial settlements, payments and costs, so made to participants based on these calculations. And as with any of the reforms that are implemented under the program, there will be a period of usual hypercare arrangements for participants as well. So that is sort of wrapping up my overview of FPP. I will take this opportunity to recognize that this go live is the culmination of a very broad collaborative effort across the industry over, I think it's a 5-year or so period, certainly longer than I've been involved. Thank you. Your contribution has been crucial to get the reform to this point. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Ulrika. And yes, it has been a journey, but a very important part of the journey. Nicole Nazir will now provide a summary of 2 initiatives that are both approaching very rapidly their final implementation, that being enhancing reserve information, ERI, and changes to accommodate the ST parser procedure and recall period. So Nicole, would invite you to the mic to take us through these 2 important initiatives.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg. Hello, everyone. I'm Nicole Nasser, and yeah, I'm the business lead for these next 2 reforms, enhanced reserve information and the ST parser procedure and recall period projects. Thanks. So the enhanced reserve information reform is a particularly important one as more storage assets enter the system. So it's focused basically on improving the transparency to better assess when reserves are needed during the energy transition. And reserves are, for those who aren't aware, of what a part of what AEMO uses to maintain system security and reliability. So you can see that AEMO is, as Greg also mentioned, about to deliver this project. It will go live on the 1st of July. And while this information has been already provided to AEMO by participants through SCADA and was part of the deliverables through the ISS project, it's basically a more more of this data, and some of it is now obligatory. So yeah, participants will be able to see this information. They'll be able to make more informed decisions, especially around times of low reserve, which is when people are making decisions. Thanks. Next slide. So the participants that are impacted are the ones that are already providing max storage capacity and the state of charge values. So that's the generators and battery owners. You can see on the right-hand side of this slide that areas for registration, bidding and dispatch are where some of the changes are occurring for participants. They're not onerous, fairly minor. And at the current state, this project is under industry testing, and it will be completed later this month, and then AEMO will be going live with this one on the 1st of July. There is also a small component of this project that will be delivered on the 1st of July 2027, and that's got to do with the state of charge, or the real-time state of charge information for Tasmania, where there isn't actually information there to release, so we'll be releasing it later. Yeah, so next slide, thanks. So this is the ST Parser Procedure and Recall Period project. So it's also being delivered on the 1st of July. Thanks. So what is PARSA? For those who aren't aware, it's the projected assessment of system adequacy. AEMO prepares 2 timeframes for this information. One is the medium term, which is the 2-year horizon of expected electricity supply to meet demand, and one is the short term, which is the 7-day assessment period. So this project is in the short term PARSA. And for this reform, AEMO is delivering the obligations under the AEMC's final determination, which was the updating short-term PARSA rule change that was finalised in May 2022. It introduces some ST Parser principles, an ST Parser procedure, and some revised ST Parser definitions. It's also a stepping stone. This reform is a stepping stone towards AEMO's larger ST Parser replacement project, and that has its own deliverable page, so you can see the link, I think, on this slide, and helps AEMO meet the obligations under the new Rule 373. So participants will be able to will on the 31st of July, this is when the rule goes live, we'll be able to submit bids for recall period, and that will commence on the 31st of July. While the rule does go live while this reform goes live on the 1st of July with ERI as a bundling approach that AEMO has taken, the actual obligation doesn't commence until the 31st of July when the rule goes live. So yeah, and same as the ERI project, it's also under industry testing, and yeah, as I said, there will be a sort of a time lapse between the 1st of July and the 31st. So make sure you get all your systems ready in time for the 31st of July for this one. Thanks, Greg. That's all for me. I'll be back a bit later.
Thank you, Nicole. And the next 2 initiatives will be presented by Justin. These are both components of the Accelerating Smart Meter Deployment Rule. We're describing them as part of the Metering Services Review Acceleration and Metering Services Review Power Quality Data Delivery. The reason we have split those into 2 is the differences in the deployment dates, which I'm sure Justin will work us through. But Justin, if you could run the group through summaries of both these metering service review initiatives.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. And yeah, good afternoon. My name's Justin Stewart. I'm a business lead at AEMO, so I'm working on this consultation. Next slide, please. Yeah, so last year the AMC published their final determination called the Accelerating Smart meter deployment rule, which is based actually on the metering services review. So that's why we call it metering services review. The rule has a number of core reforms and enabling reforms. So this slide speaks to the core reform of acceleration and the enabling reforms to assist that acceleration. So the core reform is the legacy meter replacement plan. So that requires LNSPs to retire their legacy meters from 2025 to 2030. So a legacy meter is a type 5 or a type 6 meter, and more simply, it's actually just a meter that's manually read. Under this legacy meter replacement plan, each year is called an interim period between 2025 and 2030. So from a systems perspective, AEMO has created a new field in MSATs that ties the interim period date of the replacement of the meter to the NEM. As mentioned, there's a number of enabling reforms. So on the slide there, we have defect management. So MCs are now required to notify retailers of a defect. So where the MC is unable to exchange a legacy meter to a smart meter. So from a systems perspective, again, MSATs is required to note that there is a defect at the NIMI, as well as the type of the defect. From a one in all in perspective, this isn't necessarily an MSAT system impact, but there's a new procedure in the rule where it requires the management of replacement of meters with shared fusing. So this has actually impacted the B2B processes. And finally, there's a new requirement for testing and inspection. So AEMO is actually in the final stages of consultation for this component of the rule change. Where we have proposed a new metrology procedure to detail the testing and inspection requirements, as well as modification to the exemption process. Key dates are on the right-hand side of the screen. So LNSPs need to populate that new field, that LMRP field, from the 26th of October to the 27th of November this year. And then from the 1st of December this year, the rule commenced for the replacement of legacy meters, as well as those enabling reforms that I spoke to before about defect management, shared fusing, testing and inspection. Next slide, please. So from an impact assessment, this hits retailers, it hits networks, and it hits metering businesses. So from our next steps, we have to finalise the consultation for testing and inspection. We need to work with LNSPs to load that data into MSATs. And from an industry testing perspective, that starts in September 2025. Can move on if there's no questions. Great. All right, basic power quality data. So as I mentioned before, there's these core reforms. So the second core reform from the smart meter deployment rule relates to basic power quality data. Yeah, so the expansion of the CER, consumer energy resources, in the NEM has impacted the stability and efficiency of the low voltage distribution network. So this rule allows LNSPs to receive basic power quality from smart meters, which will assist the LNSPs to manage their networks better. So what is basic power quality data? So it's actually a new term that's been created in the rules, and it's the measurement of volts, amps, and phase angle. So under this rule, MCs are required to send these units of measure to LNSPs from smart meters. So going back again to this whole smart meter deployment, so those smart meters that will be deployed will need to provide this data. From an AEMO perspective, we're tasked to update processes and procedures to develop the basic power quality data framework, which also includes the exchange architecture and the service levels. So AEMO is currently working with industry to deliver this data on the IDX platform. This rule starts on the 1st of July next year, so that's why we've broken it into sort of 2 slides. And might just click over to the next slide, please. So the key people key participants who are impacted are metering businesses, as well as LNSP. So the key challenge is to get that data from the smart meters to the LNSPs. We're currently in the consultation phase at the moment. Our draft report is due to be published in a couple of weeks' time, and we need to publish the final report on the 30th September this year. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Justin. as once again plenty of activity in the metering world as we move through that deployment. Jen will provide us now an overview of the Improving Security Frameworks initiative. This, once again, is another one that is scheduled for full implementation within the 2025 year. So, Jen, if you could provide us an overview of ISF.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jen Hardman, and today I'm going to be covering the Improving Security Frameworks for the Energy Transition Initiative, otherwise known as ISF. We do love an acronym here at AEMO. So why improve security frameworks in the lead up to the energy transition? Well, it's becoming more challenging to manage the power system security in particular, and this can be attributed to factors like an increasing variable generation mix, but also more frequent extreme weather events. So essential system services, or ESS, like inertia and system strength, are critical to maintaining the overall power system security and reliability by meeting core power system requirements. So historically, synchronous generators, so coal, gas, hydro, would supply these services, but the newer non-synchronous generators, such as wind, solar and batteries, do not necessarily automatically provide these same services. So thinking about the key benefits, the introduction of new incentives means that there's a focus on investing for the future of system security and scheduling of security services. There's more transparency around security needs and learnings that can be applied in the longer term. Consumers will also benefit from the knowledge that this initiative ensures that the power system needs of the future will continue to be met. So looking at key dates, so 31st of August is when the full security enablement procedures will come into effect, and 2nd of December marks rule commencement and full obligation, enablement obligations. Next slide. Thanks, Anitra. Thank you. So who does the reform impact? So scheduled and semi-scheduled generators, integrated resource providers and TNSPs primarily. On the AEMO side, it's our operations, digital and system design teams that are impacted the most. In terms of next steps, we are going to publish a security enablement procedure draft report that is on track for next Friday, the 13th of June. And that will be open for feedback, along with a draft transition approach for TNSPs. That'll be later this month. We'll also publish iterative tech specs to support participant development. And a market trial will be held later this year, so October, November. And our ISF working group will continue so that we can work through all aspects of the rule implementation. If you'd like to find out more, you can head to the ISF page on the AEMO website. The links are there. Check out the Reform Initiative brief, or you can always email us. Don't forget that there is the Q&A function there. So if you do have any questions, just pop them in there using that Q&A function, and ISMEs will respond. Thank you, and back to you, Dave.
Thanks, Jen. Now, our next two initiatives that we want to discuss what we've termed under this program part of our foundational and strategic initiatives. Major difference here is these aren't necessarily rule obligations, but been identified with the program in extensive participant consultation as key initiatives to take forward. They're still going through the planning and initiation phases, and I'd invite Shane here to talk to us about identity and access management without coining another acronym, IDAM. So Shane, over to you.
Thanks, Greg. G'day, everyone. Shane Walker's my name. I'm the product owner for IDAM. Thanks for attending. If you could go to the next slide, please. So this is external IDAM is still in the planning phase, but the initial instigation of this was done some time ago, And as it says there, it's predominantly about providing a foundational support for a lot of the other changes that are going on within IDAM. Its primary function is, as the name suggests, to manage identities and access management. And to that effect, we have a couple of key dates that we're aiming to meet. The first one is in July next year to support the PQ data release. And after that, the next one at this point is intended to be in October. I should stress that is still in the planning phase. We are in the planning phase at the moment. So that's our target date, but it has yet to be confirmed. The key benefits that are intended. Oh, sorry. No, that's fine. If people have read it, I mean, I'm just going to read it out. So the core reason for this, of course, is to improve the security and the usability of the IDAM, the Identity and Access Management systems that are there today, and replace them with more modern and more secure solutions. So yes, if you click the slide now, please. Now, we have identified that there'll be a high impact on basically everybody. The reason that that's there at the moment is because, as a general rule, identity and access management impacts everybody. At this point, we're not in a position to say it will barely touch you, but it will really heavily impact on you. So we've just done a across the board for, as I say, for a general identity and access management upgrade. There's usually a pretty high impact because it impacts every user. As I said, the planning of the project's scheduled for completion in June this year. And then the design and implementation work will commence for the BPQD release in July 26. That's probably all I need to say, I think, Greg.
Thanks, Shane. And I guess the message for participants on this call, as we are going through, as you can see, we are expecting, as this initiative moves through to a rollout and transitional phase, basically all participants will be impacted in one way or another. So this is certainly an initiative for people to keep their eyes on in terms of as we develop those implementation timeframes and the impacts, and to consider the way you will be need to become involved as we go through. This next initiative is similar in a number of ways, and that's to look at the foundation project, looking at the upgrades to our industry data exchange. And with that, Graham, if you're online, if you could please provide this group a briefing on our progress in working through industry data exchange, the foundation components.
Sure. Thank you, Greg. Hello, everyone. So I'm Graham Windley. I'm a senior project manager on the IDEX project. IDEX is a purely technical project. It is very closely coupled with IDAM. And it's part of a range of initiatives. Yes, thank you. The slide on, please. So yeah, with IDAM and also another one, PC, portal consolidation. How many acronyms can we fit in one sentence? We're doing quite well. 3 initiatives that make up what's now called the Market Interface and Technology Enhancements Group. We do run with a specifically focused work group. These initiatives are ones which are based on strategic and foundational sort of technologies that support reforms in the industry, and aren't specifically accompanied by a mandated rule change. So it's good to be able to do for a while these kind of strategic projects, which helps provide the foundation of the services that are provided. The IDEX project itself is divided into both the foundational phase, which is the current phase. This is to effectively, as on the tin, build the foundational capability and to provide services for new reforms coming on. As mentioned, the business power quality data is that first reform we're targeting. The second phase will be the transitional phase, which would then have the migration of legacy services onto the new data exchange platform. During the business case for it, there were too many uncertainties about how much change would be required to the legacy services, and it may depend partially on customers or participants' individual setups, and not just sort of the change itself, but whether payloads formatting needs to change, sort of etc. May be a big part of that. So it was too difficult to tell without doing the foundation and then an individual assessment. So the individual assessment of each service will be done leading in to as part of the business case to this to IDEX transition. So effectively, what is it? It's creating that set of patterns, protocols, and technologies. So patterns such as, through say API, through LVI, the low volume interface, the use of large files and other sort of specific ways, and formats such as JSON, the AMOS CSV, and other unstructured formats of submitting data, and providing a set of standards, making them easier to work with, having that tight integration and coupling with the IDAM solution, which is also just spoken to, in being built. We are, as part of Foundation, we're also building a capability to be leveraged by the WEM and by gas markets. So IDEX Foundation encompasses those requirements. So the service can be used and can be deployed for those markets. However,
Sorry, we seem to have lost audio.
I have lost Graham. Are
hello?
you back? Yeah,
I'm back.
We lost you
Sorry
there.
about that.
We
that
lost you
brief.
there for a little while. Perhaps if you
Okay.
rewind about 30 seconds and go again.
Okay.
You got as far as mentioning gas and WEM.
Mentioning gas and WEM, and then the internet broke. Okay, no problem. So yeah, gas and WEM. We're delivering the foundational capability we're delivering will also be able to be used by gas and by WEM markets, but we will not be including them as part of the transition. It's up to those markets themselves to determine the best path for what services they might choose to migrate and when. It's not up to the WEM to determine that for those markets. So we have been working closely with those markets to ensure that their requirements are also included within the build. The framework and one of the reasons like these is to really provide that whole forward strategic capability that can handle the pace of change, that can handle the increase in the amount of data, and that can handle the large files that are sent at an increased frequency, and done in a secure way. So these are a very kind of the benefits are really key kind of across the board. It should also help with service management too. At the moment, we do have a number of different services and that are provided, multiple different solutions to maintain, which also has its cost both for us as well as for consumers. In terms of dates, so yes, we are certainly targeting the 1st of July 2026 to support the capability required for business power quality data. We're then providing and going to deliver a number of use case trials within pre-production only. The use case trials will be current legacy services, but that will only be provided within pre-production for testing. We will request some involvement. There's also a date there which we've got an asterisk around, which is around decision point 2. It's something we're working for internally at the moment to come up with an appropriate date. It will require the proper planning for that for the transition project to firm that date up. Next slide, please. So impact assessment on this, there's a bit of detail here for those who'd like to divulge it in terms of what will be changing. We'll be adapting the low volume interface for participants to make it easier to use. There'll be a decision tree to confirm how to route and the various depending on the file and what needs to be sent and the frequency. AMO-hosted business endpoints. It should will enable participants to reduce cost. WebSocket flips to event-driven notifications rather than constant polling of endpoints. As said, looking at changing the payload standards, but making them having a clear sort of set of standards that can be used and then applied. And then we're also adapting the AMO supplied software. Some of you may know this.
Lost them again.
Yes, I think Graham may have lost connectivity again. What we might do
For the go live of release 1.
Sorry, Graham, we did just lose you for about 45 seconds again. So
apologies, not sure what's going on with my internet. I'll close to wrapping up. In terms of participant impacts, the same as for business power quality data. For the release 2, the impacts are pre-production. It's pre-production only, so it's optional for those who would like to partake in testing. There are the use cases listed there are the ones that we will be trialing within the pre-production environment. So there aren't changes to the files themselves, to be clear. This is a technical service. It's not a service where we are actually adjusting the files unless there's a point where we need to change the payload. So the files and the data formatting adjustments are not part of the IDX project, but that's a sample of how we can start to distribute and engage with and distribute the files in the new format. So it's very similar to Shane and IDAM. We're ramping up at completing planning. We have also started development activities on IDX, which are currently underway while we finish planning. And there has been a tech spec distributed to the Mighty working group, and it should be made available more publicly after the next meeting on the 18th of June.
Thanks, Graham.
Sorry about the interruptions too.
That's understood. We will blame general information technology, no one in particular. Thanks for that update. And for those that are looking to get more information regarding IDEX and to that extent IDAM, we are running Mighty working groups that we're working through some of these challenges, and I can see some questions in the chat, focus groups, etc. We'll look to answer, but these are initiatives, as Graham said, in early stages of delivery, wrap up of planning for the foundational point of view, and we look forward to continuing to work with a number of you as we work through those challenges. This next, as Shane and Graham indicated, our current planning is for both of those IDEX initiatives to be part of implementation in 2026. Flexible trading arrangements has 2 effective dates. And I'd ask Justin to return to the group to provide us an overview of flexible trading arrangements. Justin, to you.
Thanks, Greg. Next slide, please. Yes, so this rule was published, I think it was in August last year. I think there's 2 main parts to it. So there's the flexible trading. So that allows flexible resources such as batteries, solar, smart heating to have a separate NIMI from their passive loads. And so for large customers, they can have a separate front for that flexible resource, whereas small customers can participate, but the flexible resource NIMI must be with the same retailer. The other main part to this rule change is the minor energy flow metering component. So previously, needed connection points such as street lighting, public barbecues, and emerging technologies such as EV charging stations on network poles can be metered. Underpinning this rule change as well is underpinning the flexible trading as well as the minor energy flow metering are the new metering types. So there's type 8s and type 9s. Type 8s refer to those secondary settlement points of flexible trading, and type 9 refers to the metering of the minor energy flows. I probably also should note that this rule change is optional for participants to participate in. The key dates for us, so we're working our way through the consultation process at the moment. I think participants responded, I think it was last week, to our issues paper. We did have a lot of responses and a lot of detailed responses as well, so we thank participants for responding. Our next key milestone is the 1st of July, where we expect to publish the draft determination. The final determination is published on the 30th of September this year. Next slide, please. Probably, as Greg mentioned before, I think importantly that there's two effective dates for this rule change. So the 31st of May 2026 is when Type 9 metering installations can be installed. So that refers to that minor energy flow metering. And from the 1st of November 2026, that's when the flexible trading regime starts. So from an impact assessment, across LNSPs, metering and retail, so it's pretty broad. And from a next steps perspective, we need to continue with the consultation. So it's quite a detailed consultation for this one. It's impacting a lot of procedures. And as I mentioned before, there's a lot of industry interest in this particular rule change, which is quite interesting. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Justin. And with that, let us move on to our next initiative, Project Energy Connect, the market integration components of Project Energy Connect. And I'd ask Nicole to provide us a briefing on this next stage of this initiative. Nicole, over to you.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks very much. Yeah. Hi, everyone. So it's Nicole Nasser again. And yeah, I'm doing the business lead for this Project Energy Connect. This is the market integration component. This is the part where it's about bringing our, so for those of you who aren't aware, but Project Energy Connect is the new interconnector between New South Wales and South Australia. So this reform is about delivering that into our system, but specifically the dispatch and settlement component systems and the component of the project that touches those two systems. This is because there is lots of other parts of the Project Energy Connect, but this reform is just focusing on these two parts. There is a rule change that is in relation to the settlement component. So AEMO has split this into two stages of the project. We've got the dispatch systems component and then the settlement system. So the dispatch part, and I won't read out everything that's on that slide, but the dispatch part, you can see the biggest activity that we are undertaking is the changes to the negative residue management procedure. So that will be consulted on, and that's imminent to start that consultation. The settlements component is linked to the AEMC rule change called Interregional Settlement Residue Arrangements for a Transmission Loop, or IRSR arrangements. So that is currently being delayed and won't have its final determination until the end of September. So AEMO is looking at how the AEMC will propose to I've forgotten what I was going to say. Oh, to allocate or reallocate the residues around the loop. Next slide, thanks. So the impacts AEMO's assessed to participants are really focused on the TNSPs and SRA participants. In this sense, the ones that are for the negative residue management changes is not an impact to the participant per se. It's just something that is part of the way that constraint equation will work. The TNSPs and the SRAs will be impacted by the way the allocation of the residues is formulated, and that is still up for discussion under the AEMC rule change. So the next steps, as I said, is the commencement of the negative residue management procedure consultation, which will be commencing soon, and watching out for the AEMC's options paper, which is to come out in mid-June with a methodology change. I think that's all from me. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Nicole. And as you can see, as rule determinations land, we will be working through refining delivery timeframes approaches in line with those final determinations. This next initiative, shortening the settlement cycles, has recently reached that final determination stage, and I'd ask Ben if you could provide the group an overview of our implementation approach to this particular rule. So Ben, to you.
Thank you so much, Greg. Hi, everyone. So my name is Ben Bykoff, and I'm the business lead for shortening the settlement cycle. And I'm super excited to be working on this, especially considering the benefits that it'll have on market participants and consumers. So one of the main reasons for shortening the settlement cycle is because credit support requirements in the NEM can be significant, particularly for smaller retailers that are less likely to have a generation portfolio that would offset their prudential position, and who also may have greater financing costs for bank guarantees. And additionally, during high pricing periods, retailers must respond to an increase in their accrued liabilities by providing additional cash deposits or increased credit support to AMO in the form of bank guarantees. So the shortening settlement cycle initiative decreases the time or number of days over which participants are required to provide credit support by shortening the settlement cycle from 20 business days down to 9 business days following the end of a billing week. And with the SSC final rule, there are 3 major implementation components here. The first being that we need to establish metering and settlement processes that support a new shorter settlement cycle. The second is that we need to adapt the credit limit procedures and supporting process to reflect the shorter settlement cycle. And thirdly, we need to transition metering, settlement, and prudential processes to the shorter settlement cycle. And this transition means there's a transition period, and that begins from the rule commencement date of 9th of August 2026 and ends almost 2 months later on the 17th of October 2026. Both of these dates you can see in the key dates section on this slide here as well. In terms of key benefits of this initiative, it's that it should result in a reduction in the amount of credit support provided by participants. And so this will lower the working capital requirements for participants and should support increased investment in service innovation, lower barriers to retail electricity market entry, and reduce the risk of retailer failure. And for consumers, this would mean access to better service offerings, more choice, and more competitive pressure on retail prices, which is great. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in terms of impacts on market and industry stakeholders, it's the financially responsible market participants, or FROMPs, that will be impacted, as well as metering data providers. And in terms of next steps, the wholesale procedures consultation has actually commenced as of yesterday with the publishing of the credit limit procedures consultation paper. And retail procedures consultation is expected to commence in October this year. AMO will publish a plan for transitioning the NEM to the new 9 business day settlement cycle, which will also include a transitional settlement calendar, and all of which will be provided by the 5th of December this year. And as I stated earlier, the final rule commences on 9th of August 2026. That's all from me. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Ben. We look forward to working with a number of participants in regard to that rule change. The final of our what we've termed our in-flight initiatives is integrating price responsive resources, IPR, into the national electricity market. This, in terms of our program, has a rule commencement date in May 2027, and as you can see from the start of these summaries, which talked about rule commencements from this Sunday through to May 2027, encompasses the scope of what we know of at the moment, our committed initiatives. So Anna, I'd invite you to the forum to provide an overview
Thanks, Greg.
of IPR.
Thanks for that. Hi, I'm Anna Boyne, and I'm acting for Emily Brodie, who's the business lead on IPRR at the moment. So thank you for that. IPRR is a critical reform supporting the NEM's transition to a net zero future. It's a rule that will enable the growing number of unscheduled price responsive resources to participate in the NEM. So resources like residential, commercial and industrial loads, batteries, and other distributed energy resources that can adjust their consumption or generation in response to market signals. It introduces a new voluntary framework known as dispatch mode to allow these resources into NEM scheduling and dispatch processes. And it also recognises that many price responsive resources will not be capable of or choose not to participate in dispatch mode. So hence the voluntary nature of it. But there is also an incentive mechanism on top of the participation, which has some caps on it, 50 million total, plus a $1 per megawatt cap and things like that. So that's the incentive framework. There's also AEMO monitoring and reporting framework to just see how it's going. Key benefits to this are lowering the barriers to entry in that dispatch and that sort of and scheduling. It improves AEMO's visibility of CER and DER, which becomes more and more important the more CER and DER there is. And this ability to have this telemetry link with us ensure it means that we can start to offset investment in larger scale storage and stuff with a good uptake on this. Now, some key dates on here. You can see that some of these are in the past. So the rule came through, final rule really late last year. The high level impact assessment was a few months ago. Coming up in September is the final of the VSR guidelines, but recently a draft was released. So if you're interested in giving us some feedback around that, that would be great. And then there's also some up and coming dates there, which are also on the next slide. So if we can go to the next slide, that'd be great. All right, so here's a little bit around the impact assessment. So essentially, overall impact is to those that might want to participate from an industry, market and industry stakeholders perspective. There's a fair bit of impact there for AEMO internally, as you can see. And participant change impacts are again to those that may choose to participate, and some more minor impacts on some other participants as well. But the next steps, we've got some essentially the different go live dates. We've got the monitoring and reporting starts on the start of next calendar year, so 1st of January. The next thing to roll out is the incentive mechanism. So that will start in April next year. And that's designed so that those that participate in the mechanism have time to prepare for the dispatch mode going live in May 2027. There's also consultations underway, and you can see more about that on our website. And there's also some system development and testing dates around August, coming up soon, and then to June next year. So keep an eye on that as well. But that's pretty much all from me. If you have any questions, I'll be interested to hear them.
Thanks, Anna. And we'll certainly look if there's any questions coming through you in that Q&A function. I guess that illustrates for the group, hopefully, the scale and the scope of our in-flight initiatives through from those that are currently in flight through to 2027. This next segment, where we want to flag for people a number of what we've termed anticipated initiatives. So basically, those that we don't yet have enough certainty about the delivery or the implementation timeframes. We're working through that, but they are imminently going to be part of the program. And I'd ask David if you could provide a summary of a number of those anticipated initiatives. David, over to you.
Great, thanks, Greg. Yes, let's pop on to the next slide, Anitra. Thank you. So first, cab off the rank, and I know we had questions in the chat there as well. Portal consolidation is certainly in that planning phase at the moment. This particular initiative, as Graham mentioned earlier, is one of three initiatives which we've kind of collectively referred to as MIGHTY. And the focus of this initiative is around establishing a new web and mobile user portal to provide a unified stakeholder experience. So seeing uplift in that space. We anticipate there'll be moderate impacts on all market and industry stakeholders who access AMO services. And the current phase that it's in is planning. So we started planning in late March 25. We're working through on kind of those key project artifacts and delivering those for the funding and execution phase within AMO, and certainly working with IDAM and IDEX projects very closely there to produce that consolidated view and execution plan on a page. So I guess it's a little bit of a watch this space for now. As soon as we have information on this, further information and developments, we'll certainly bring that to industry through one of our forums. EVD, or electric vehicle data, is the next one. So looking at improving visibility of electric vehicles as it relates to the electricity industry. And so that's to governments and industry participants. So we expect the impact there to be to market and industry stakeholders, and I guess it's still yet to be determined, subject to the final design, given the current stage that it's at. Worth noting that this was previously named electric vehicle supply equipment. So AEMO has undertaken some feasibility work there, which has involved industry consultation, and it also had a recommendations paper which was published in April, the 23rd of April, which was open to consultation with submissions closing in May, just gone by. So I guess it's, again, watch this space as we develop through the electric vehicle data initiative as well. And certainly we will bring through our regular forums an update on that initiative as we have more information and as things progress. The final one here is cashless security. So this is about increasing the flexibility and lowering the cost for participants to provide credit support in the NEM. Likely impacts are going to be to financially responsible market participants. Draft determination we saw come through in April. We're anticipating a final determination on the 26th of June, so not too far away. We have produced a HLIA for that initiative. We did have that open to feedback, and we're continuously open to feedback on that particular document and process through the forums. And we are aiming to release our final HLIA following the final determination, so targeting that kind of August timeframe, but obviously yet to be confirmed. So that's it, Greg. I think I just glossed through the commencement dates there, but indicative commencements are on screen, where we have information to provide some degree of guidance there. Cashless security being kind of clearer than the other two, but we will certainly bring those updates to industry as soon as we have more information.
Thanks, David. And yes, that highlights that as this program progresses, there will be updates to delivery dates as more information comes to hand. And that does conclude our work through of our in-flight and anticipated initiatives. The next lens that we'd like to provide is in terms of the implementation roadmap. This, I believe, is the 6th version that's just been released, and Lance will walk us through some of the key changes and the inclusions, and hopefully it'll provide a resource for those looking at both the longer term and the scope of how the NEM reform implementations may play out. And it does highlight, I guess, the changeable nature of those initiatives within the roadmap. So, Lance, I will hand across to you to provide an overview of the key changes in version 6 of the implementation roadmap.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Greg. And fantastic to have so many of you on the call today. So thank you for making the time. For those that aren't familiar with the roadmap, Anitra, if we can just jump to the next slide. Thanks. For those that aren't familiar with the roadmap, it essentially aims to serve as a bit of a guide to navigate the evolving reform landscape that we are all involved in at the moment. So everything that the team has covered in terms of the initiatives that we are delivering actually features on the roadmap at a reasonable high level, but it does provide you with that overall picture. So in addition to providing that visual representation of the reforms that we're collectively working on, it aims to do a few different things, and some of those are listed on the screen here, but really it's about mitigating risks associated with delivery, about reducing implementation costs wherever we can. So it helps us identify and visualize where there's potential opportunities to either bundle or sequence some of the reforms. And then it also serves as an input into some of the decision making that happens when it comes to timing for regulatory or policy changes and things of that nature. It really comes about through collaboration and collaboration with many a stakeholder, in particular the Reform Delivery Committee. But it's really not just limited to that group. We certainly take input and feedback from a wide group of stakeholders. Just in terms of its actual publication, so as Greg mentioned, we've just published version 6 of the roadmap in April. That's our typical timeline. We typically update it in April and October of each year, and it's actually done in accordance with one of our governance processes that was set up when we put the program together, and that's specifically our change management process. If we just jump to the next slide. So this is a bit of a screenshot. It's always actually quite difficult to show the roadmap on a single slide. So apologies for how this slide is coming across on the screen today. There's someone just come offline. I'll just continue. So when we do update, there's a whole bunch of general updates that we do. So we always look to identify and assess any of those incremental or material changes, and I'll speak to some of the material changes on the next slide. We typically try to restructure the initiatives that are within the roadmap just to make sure that they're consistent with those that we are working on and aligned to the estimated go live dates. In certain cases, there's some rebranding of initiatives. Say where rule changes have been rebranded. Scheduled Light was integrating price responsive resources was once known as Scheduled Light. Things of that nature. Finally, we always look to include or remove initiatives that have either been announced, so where a new rule change has commenced, or where we've actually already delivered those initiative within the program. If we jump to the next slide, thanks, Anitra. So this slide provides an overview of some of the material changes that we had identified this time around. I won't speak to all of these. When we typically think about a material change, we're talking about either a material change in scope from that which was previously assumed when we put together the roadmap, or it could be a material change in timing. And so if I think about timing, it's typically 2 months or more. We'll tend to call it as a material change. There's a whole bunch of stuff that happened in the last 6 months since we have updated the roadmap. A couple of good examples of that is the IPRR final determination that came out in December. Similarly, with the shortening settlement cycle, we saw that out in December as well. We also had the draft determination, as Dave has just mentioned, on the cash as credit support in April as well. And then we heard from the gentleman earlier just around the Mighty program and some of the planning activities and key dates that have being worked through. So we've captured those in the roadmap. So the earlier version that was released in October actually had a bit of a placeholder as the team was working through that. If we just jump to the next slide, thanks, Anitra. So we typically always look to try and identify some of the key trends and opportunities, and I must admit the trends don't seem to change a huge amount. If anything, we continue to face quite a significant and complex reform schedule that requires us to implement. In addition to what's already on the cards, there's always kind of new things that are coming our way. So I don't think that will come as a surprise to anyone on the call today. But if we think about some of the dates that we've been talking about for the last hour, the rest of 2025, 2026, and even into the beginning of 2027, we're going to be busy. There's a lot of work happening across not only reforms, but the non-reform initiatives in terms of those foundational and strategic stuff as well. Just to add to the mix, there's a fair bit of uncertainty in the policy and rule change landscape at the moment. So we, AEMO, are certainly engaged, and I'm sure many on the call are, with the NEM wholesale settings review. So we're eagerly waiting to see what comes out of that towards the end of this year. And then we're also working through the national CER roadmap. And so there's a bunch of initiatives and pieces of work that are happening within that space that will eventually make their way onto the roadmap as determinations are made, for example. That being said, we always try to look for opportunities, and so there's a few things that we are always mindful of around bundling and sequencing and making sure that we're getting those things right. There's a bunch of inputs that we like to work through, and some of those have been mentioned in terms of the HLIA process, the high-level implementation assessment, as well as the participant impact assessment, which Dave will speak to in the next section. These are really critical inputs as to how we think about the roadmap and what's positioned where in terms of those timing decisions more broadly. If we just jump to the next slide. Yeah, thanks, Anitra. So what you've heard today is a really quick snapshot of some of the initiatives that we are delivering. There's actually 3 to 4 page summaries of those initiatives in what we refer to as our initiative brief document, which is available on our website. We always update that alongside the roadmap as well. So I do encourage those who are new to the program or looking to get a little bit more information on any one of the initiatives, do go check it out. There's also a program scope and a little bit more information about the governance that we have set up around the program as well. Greg, that's all I wanted to cover for today, so I'll hand it back to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Lance, and thank you for that summary of the implementation roadmap version 6. And probably as importantly for those participants on the call, some reference information that people can access to find out more about our evolving program. And similarly, as part of that desire to provide participants and equip them with a way of looking at impact assessment of a number of the initiatives that we've talked about, AEMO's recently released a participant impact assessment tool. And Dave, if you would please provide a briefing to the group on the background to that and how people who are interested can in fact access it. So Dave, over to you.
Great, thanks, Greg. And yes, this is something that we've just released this year, the participant impact assessment tool. So we'll have a quick snapshot of that. So I guess the thinking around this particular piece of work was following conversations with industry through our program consultative forums and reform delivery committees, and even at the executive forum level. It's very clear, and from this presentation today, that there's a lot of moving parts in this delivery program. And even as illustrated by Lance in the previous slides on the roadmap, a lot of that information, as we deliver it through that kind of planning format, sometimes can be a little difficult to kind of synthesize. It's somewhat static in how we present some of that information. So a question then was, how can we produce something that can help participants and AEMO and the market bodies be a little bit more dynamic and strategic and tactical in how they interpret the data. How can we make that a little bit easier and accessible? So really the challenge was equipping industry with some of those insights and tools that help us make more informed and strategic decisions, and the result was this kind of simple dashboard that we've produced here. It is available on the AEMO website, link in the slides, which you can click on, and it'll bring you to the document. It does have macros, just as a forewarning, so you may need to save it to a safe location in your respective organization's folder structure in order to have the full use of the tool. So the purpose really is to use this dashboard. We've got it at two different resolutions. One is kind of at that industry level, which is the top half of what you see on screen, and the bottom half is that participant level view. So you can cycle through wholesalers, etc., networks to kind of see what the impact is against that category of participant. And then at the higher resolution, you can look at let's say an NSP or a TNSP or a DNSP or a generator or etc., and see what the impact of the reforms are on that particular category. So really it's around helping assess the impact of the program across a time period. I think we've got it out to 27. It's to aid with evidence-based decision making so that we can look a little bit forward and kind of see where the really busy hotspots are, look for opportunities for bundling, sequencing, etc. The data, as Lance and inputs for this tool, as Lance kind of spoke to, come from the roadmap. It comes from the participant impact assessments that we've had at the RDC. It comes from high-level impact assessments that we have undertaken for the various initiatives, and some stakeholder feedback as well to help inform this. The information doesn't remain static. It will change over time. This, for example, is an earlier version, which if we use the tool now, you'll see that the data has changed. And so we anticipate updating that when we have significant new information or on kind of a quarterly basis, absent of material changes and updates. So that's, I guess, a snapshot. We have worked through the development of this tool. We built it with an AEMO, took it through the RDC. We've taken it through the executive forum as well at a snapshot to give a high-level view, and have had some good feedback, and also with some interested stakeholders as well to provide some insights to help shape and inform how we've designed this. Next slide, please, Anitra. So in terms of the benefits, we've glanced at a few of these already, but really it's around improved transparency, understanding kind of the nature of some of the key drivers of the congestion. So whether it's, the tool allows you to see the different program delivery categories around the procedures and guidelines, or the testing and readiness, or the go live dates, etc. So you can kind of see what component of the delivery schedule may be impacting your business the most, and it will be different for all organizations. Gives us an opportunity to understand the bundling and sequencing opportunities there as well, and see what we can put together if there's a number of initiatives that are targeting the same procedure update. Maybe we can bundle those procedure updates together. It should help with better informed implementation planning and rule change development. So the AMC have been very interested in this tool to help leverage some insights to help prioritize and plan their year ahead. It gives them some visibility of when we've got very congested delivery areas, and how that may be used to help inform some of their commencement dates. Scenario analysis by participants or market bodies in that respect as well. So it might help with your organization's planning, or help inform some of that planning by kind of checking whether the tool looks like it's going to present some high impact areas and at what time of the year. So I would say that we certainly encourage participants to engage with that tool. The caveat is that it is just for guidance only. It certainly isn't an all singing, all dancing kind of, I guess, piece of kit. But maybe it helps to plan some of the high level decisions, or think through if you have undertaken your own organization's impact assessment and it aligns with AEMO, it may be some degree of verification there. If it doesn't align, then it's certainly a reason to ask some questions and engage with the teams here, and try to understand how we the delta in that assessment and what that means. You can find it on the website in the NEM reform program section of AMO's website. Just a screenshot there for a link and a link to the tool, but just so you can see exactly where to get it. So alongside the roadmap, it's available as something that provides that dynamic assessment of the in-flight initiatives. Next slide, please, Nitra. So this is just an example analysis that you could extract. It just provides a visual overview. So you might see against, in this example, we've got generators and TNSPs as two separate outputs. And I won't go through this in detail, but you can see at visually, as you look through the slide, you can see that in this scenario and through this time period and with the initiatives that are being assessed in the tool, which you can provide a summary overview of and expand out, see exactly which initiatives are impacting you. You can see that generators and TNSPs have a very different view of the world in this particular scenario. So I guess it's, again, this is older data. When you go use the tool now, you might see something slightly different, and that will not be a static view. We will continue to update it as we provide more information. I think another consideration too, as you think through using this this tool, is that this only represents the impact of the in-flight initiatives of the NEM reform program. So, obviously there is a lot more going on within your own businesses, whether it's BAU or other changes that may be outside the program. So it's just important to recognize that, that this kind of gives you that perspective of the NEM reform program view impact at a very high level, but that there is a lot as well going on beyond that. But hopefully it helps kind of progress some of your thinking in that space. Happy to, I think that's the last slide there, Greg. So happy to leave it there and just encourage people to engage with the tool and certainly provide feedback at nemreform@amo.com.au for anyone who has had a chance to run through it, and certainly more than happy to take on some feedback and make adjustments as necessary.
Thanks, Dave. And yes, that is good advice. I mean, we are providing this as an opportunity for people to explore what they believe the impacts are. The other aspect, we would say, we've used certain criteria for impact assessment, as we said at the start of this briefing, and this applies particularly to the look at the participant impact analysis. This is going to be our general view based on a number of criteria. We understand that each business's impacts are going to be different. So we encourage you to use this as a guideline to investigate where, whether and if certain impacts may have impact, certain initiatives will be impacting your organisation, if you wish to be involved in them, and to continue due diligence around those initiatives. With that, we have had a little bit of discussion in the Q&A function just around the overlap of the CER roadmap initiative, how that ties into our implementation roadmap and some of the key initiatives. And I think you have offered to provide a brief overview for this group of how the status of that roadmap project and perhaps some insight into the overlaps that we've just seen with the implementation roadmap, etc.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. I think we got some questions around the CER data exchange, which is highly related to some of the things we've seen today, some of the initiatives we're seeing today, and it's under the DER program rather than the NEM reform program. But it does, it essentially, we talked today about IDAM, IDX, and also the PQ power quality data that will be the first off the rank for IDX. And one of the other things in the pipeline for leveraging IDX is the CER data exchange. So that goes through slightly different governance structure and stuff in a different program, but it has just we've just successfully concluded a a co-design stage where we spent a heap of energy and had a lot of focus on talking to the industry stakeholders about how this might work, and that's gone quite well. We've concluded that project within the CER data exchange, but the CER data exchange will continue on. And so the next stages are around detailed design and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's a very exciting way that we'll get to use IDX and really get some. It's essentially smoothing off all sorts of aspects around the data that we need to get CER really up and working. So we're looking forward to that. If you want any more information on that, there in the Q&A, I have put a link to the AMO pages. There's a public webinar and that sort of thing that was quite recent. If you'd like some more information, and there's all the reports and listed there as well.
Thank you, Anna. Much appreciated. And yeah, I think as Anna has posted stuff in the Q&A, if there are more specific questions, post that. We encourage you to contact us through NEM Reform. We will direct you to an appropriate resource. Okay, our next session, Q&A. So with registration for this session, we did poll for whether people had any specific questions. We've grouped a number of those against themes. We did receive a number of questions there, aiming to provide I guess, a summary overview against those themes. So I propose to run through these. If people feel their direct question haven't been adequately answered, and in fact, whether some of the information presented in this forum has gone a number of ways to meeting those questions. But if there are outstanding ones, at the completion of this session, please contact us directly. So one of the key themes there, impact of NEM reform, and a couple of key questions there were what was the impact on NEM reform on social license and how it would impact retailers, what are the repercussions of the NEM reform review for battery context. I guess a couple of things we'll say at the outset when looking at these themes. As we said, the content or the structure of the NEM reform program is on the implementation of agreed initiatives, and obviously things like social license in the formation of those policy decisions and those implementations is a key part. So our response there, social license, an essential enabler of successful statutory and non-statutory reform delivery. AIM is committed to prioritising that engagement where it's within our bounds, the transparency and the communication of benefits clearly, bearing in mind also that we're operating within the policy framework as determined by the AMC. In terms of the NEM review, probably the main update there is that that's yet another influence that may result in initiatives forming part of the implementation program. The final recommendations from that review are expected to go to government and the Energy and Climate Change Ministerial Council in late 2025. So the outworkings of that, we would expect, should there be those that move through implementation, to be reflected in our roadmaps and in our initiatives as they come through. Similarly, from a pipeline and planning and timeline point of view, there's a number of questions in this general theme. Can we provide specific dates for upcoming events so that we can plan internally? What are the timelines? So I hope we've provided access to a number of those tools that can provide you that sort of detail. So the general overview of initiatives and timings, they're within the NEM reform implementation roadmap. For specific details of once those initiatives in flight and to a large extent anticipated, we publish regularly PCF meeting material, which contains our summary activities, milestones, and the status against those. We'd encourage you to access those. And for each of the initiatives that are currently open or pending rule changes, probably the formal source of information in terms of progress there is the actual AMC website. So as you can see, we have a number of initiatives at various phases. We provide, hopefully, reasonably structured information as initiatives move through their life cycle. Program details. Can you provide a high-level work programs that form part of the roadmap and a concise, consistent each program? I guess in general, we've focused our material on initiative by initiative summaries. We provided at the outset a grouping of those initiatives into general themes. But if you're looking for concise information, as Lance mentioned, as part of the roadmap, there's an initiative brief that supports each of the initiatives on the roadmap, which is a reasonably concise view. The AMC website provides details of the policy intent, and there's actually a NEM reform site as those initiatives move into implementation phase that we keep updating, which provides a high-level view of the intent and the timeframes for each of those initiatives. Similarly, things like dependencies and interconnecting. We had a number of questions on what are the dependencies between various initiatives, and is there an interconnection between the NEM reforms and the West Coast marshes? So answering two spots there. The initiative brief contains an overview of where there are identified dependencies and relationships between those initiatives as part of the roadmap. We do also recognise those as part of the detailed plans that come through from an implementation point of view. And in regard to the NEM reforms and the West Coast markets, the AEMO do collaborate across our East and West Coast teams regarding various rule changes, policy or implementation matters, and where appropriate and where possible providing input into those implementation matters, taking into account both the West Coast and the NEM reforms. And finally, review and evaluation. Number of questions there. Is there a review to see whether the implemented reforms are meeting the transition objectives, and how have you arrived at the roadmap, and why do you think the right option to deliver better pricing, reliability and resilience to the electricity supply? So once again, to the specific, we've implemented an approach to providing a post-implementation review for each of the major initiatives, and that attempts to look after implementation back at how well the implementation, the broader implementation, not just the technical implementation, has gone at meeting the reform objectives as set out in the policy decisions. So once again, those are available on each of the initiative pages on AEMO's website. The roadmap, as we've said, reflects those policy decisions as they come through the regulatory framework and focuses on the implementation of those. So that roadmap governed by the jurisdictions of the AMC and the individual jurisdictions. And so each of those bodies in particular has an obligation to meet specific obligations in terms of how they progress reforms. Our roadmap is a reflection of the implementation in regard to all of those. The assessment of those initiatives very much completed by the AMC or the jurisdictions with input from stakeholders. That is a high-level summary against our Q&A. Looking at our time frame here, we're running very much to time. I'm aware that there's a number of questions still sitting in our Q&A. We will look to respond to those outside this session. We do have people who have requested. There is a number that talk about detailed timings for IDAM, IDEX, etc., and our progress there. We will certainly be addressing that in PCF forums and the mighty working groups as we go through, which is a nice segue into how to get involved. So Anitra, if we can go to the next slide. So I hope what we've been able to provide for you today is a high-level view of those initiatives that are in flight and to play out potential impacts for your organisation, depending on the position that you take in the NEM. So we'd encourage you to look through performed impact assessments against your area's operations where you wish to be involved, and to consider the timeframes for implementing those changes as laid out in the roadmap and those timeframes that we've highlighted as part of our in-flight initiatives. Please take advantage of the work that's gone into the participant impact assessment tool. Look through the roadmap, look through those initiative briefs, understand how they may potentially be impacting your organisation. And with that context, Anitra, if we go on to the next slide, the program has a number of forums available for involvement. And I guess I want to focus there on particularly the Program Consultative Forum provides a regular update of all of the in-flight initiatives coordination across the team, typically attended by the program directors, program managers for participants. Implementation Forum looks at the detailed systems implementation of each of those reforms as they go through their life cycle. The ERCF and the EWCF very much as initiatives enter the procedural consultation phases is the primary engagement forum for those initiatives. As we get closer to implementation, the working groups that focus on the participant and the industry testing is the ITWG. So would encourage when you're looking at each of those initiatives, the impact that they may have, the timeframes, consider your involvement in each or all of those forums as they go through. And should you wish to have a general discussion about timing involvement, please contact us at nemreform@aemo.com.au. We do publish material on websites, so you are able also to keep an eye on progress, any upstanding issues, advance notice on activities through looking through those forums. We understand that this is a complicated program, complex with a number of initiatives, and not every initiative impacts every participant. So we are looking here to provide a framework for you to be involved as appropriate. I think that's all I would like to say here, other than saying thank you for your participation today. I believe we will be issuing a brief survey, and we'd appreciate if you would provide us some feedback there. You can see some sites to provide further information. They're probably some of the key ones that we've talked through today. Overall, the NEM reform program, the implementation roadmap, and access to the participant impact assessment dashboard. Okay, so on that basis, I would like to thank you all for your attendance, and we look forward to continuing to work with you over the journey that is NEM reform. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks all.
Thank you, everyone.